She gave a helping hand discover the hidden billionaire who changed her father's life forever. In the small, sun-soaked town of Westwood, nothing was ever easy. 16-year-old Sarah felt the suffocating weight of her family's struggles. Her father, Joe, a once hopeful veteran, now toiled in a creaky auto repair shop, caught in the grind of unfulfilled dreams and crushing bills. The chipped paint and greasy tools echoed the silent pain of their fading life. Every day felt like a battle, yet Sarah draped herself in unwavering loyalty, hoping her work could keep their fragile bond intact, a bond fraying at the edges like the shop's tattered awning. She could hear the whispers of change lurking just outside, hidden among the weeds sprouting from cracked sidewalks. Each morning, Sarah breathed in the nostalgia of motor oil and worn-out dreams, the familiar scent both comforting and stifling. The town was growing quieter, job opportunities dwindled faster than the birds that used to fill the skies. Joe's spirit dulled each day, a once bright flame sputtering under the weight of his pride. He wrestled with the idea of needing help, often burying his head in his work to avoid the mounting tensions that made every late bill feel like a chasm between them. Sarah's heart ached not just for their finances but for Joe's silent battles. She watched him, veins tight with worry, feeling the pull of anxiety twist in her own chest. Then one fateful summer day, armed with homemade desserts and a smile forged from determination, she ventured into Westwood. Her hopes fluttered like butterfly wings, fragile but persistent. That day, she met Linda, a vibrant, eccentric woman with wild white hair that danced in the breeze. Sarah chuckled at Linda's bohemian attire, the way it seemed to defy the stillness around them. In their initial exchange, laughter broke through the tension. As their unlikely friendship blossomed, Linda's wisdom tugged at Sarah's spirit, planting seeds of hope where despair had taken root. What Sarah didn't know was that Linda held secrets, vast resources tucked away, hidden behind her whimsical demeanor. As the summer sizzled on, Linda resolved to help, anonymously investing in the shop, hoping to spark a transformation amidst the shadows of discontent. However, when Joe got wind of Linda's charity, storm clouds brewed. The revelation struck like thunder, igniting fiery clashes over pride and purpose. Joe, raw with anger, pushed back against the offer, branding it a crutch. Sarah stood caught in the crossfire, eyes stinging with tears as she felt the weight of two worlds collide. This was more than business, it was family. Just as tension continued to spiral, the unthinkable happened. A fierce storm battered the town, forcing neighbors into the same boat. In the chaos, Sarah witnessed kindness bloom, strangers becoming allies against a backdrop of shared strife. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Now, in the throes of the storm, the very fabric of their lives was at stake. Sarah had to confront her deepest values. Was pride more important than unity? With the storm as a backdrop, she realized that success wasn't always defined by independence but often by the ties that bound them as a community. As she gazed into the tempest, a question loomed large in her heart: could they heal the rift in their relationship, embrace Linda's unexpected support, and find strength in their shared struggle? The line between pride and vulnerability blurred, tiptoeing on the edge of revelation. As the storm raged on, Sarah clutched the edge of the worn wooden table in their little home, feeling the vibrations of the thunder echo through her bones. The rain fell like an army marching against the windows, persistent and unforgiving. Her heart raced not just from fear, but from the realization that change was on the horizon whether they were ready for it or not. A flash of lightning illuminated the room briefly, casting sharp shadows that danced across the walls. Sarah thought of her father, Joe, the man who had always been her rock, yet now seemed to diminish with every passing day. She feared how the weight of pride might consume him entirely. Was it possible that in holding on to it, he was pushing away the very help that could restore their fading hope? Just then, the front door swung open as Joe stumbled in, drenched from head to toe. His expression was wild, eyes wide as he took in the chaotic scene. The muted color in his face spoke volumes more than words ever could. Without thinking, Sarah rushed to him, grabbing a towel to dry his hair, her own heart pounding fiercely in sync with the storm outside. "Dad, are you okay?" she asked, voice trembling. He shook his head slowly, frustration seeping through the cracks in his tough exterior. "This storm, it's ridiculous. Everything feels out of control, Sarah. I don't know how we're going to keep the shop running like this." His voice cracked. It broke her heart to see him so vulnerable, so defeated. "Maybe we need to think about accepting help. Linda, she..." "Not her again," he snapped, his tone sharper than intended. The storm outside mimicked the storm brewing within him. "I don't need charity. It's embarrassing. Dad, it's not charity. It's a chance for us to turn things around. We can't keep doing this alone." Tears welled up as she spoke, the desperation spilling out. He glanced away, the tension thickening in the air as silence enveloped them. Sarah could almost hear the storm whispering, echoing their struggle. Then, amid the raging thunder, a loud knock on the door startled them both back to reality. Without waiting for an invitation, Linda burst in, soaking wet and wearing a broad smile that seemed undeterred by the chaos surrounding them. "Hey there. I heard the storm's making quite the ruckus. Thought I'd bring some soup and see if you all were okay." She shook off her wet hair, raindrops splattering like joyous confetti around the living room. Joe's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "We're fine, Linda. You shouldn't have come here." "Fine? Really?" She raised an eyebrow, looking between the two of them. "You may have a roof over your head, but we both know that's not the problem. It's a storm outside and inside." Sarah's heart raced. Linda's boldness cut through the heaviness. Maybe we do need your help. Maybe we need to stop trying to fight this alone." Joe's mouth twisted in uncertainty as he looked at Sarah, who was pleading with her eyes. Would he let this moment turn into another fight, or could he find the courage to adapt, to lean into the community they had been neglecting? A flash of lightning lit up the room again, but this time it didn't feel so ominous. It felt like a challenge, like an invitation. "Listen," Linda said softly, her voice even amid the storm's fury. "Community isn't just about giving. It's about receiving too. You don't have to be strong all the time. Let others hold you when you need it." Joe's expression softened, his defenses crumbling inch by inch. Sarah held her breath as she realized this was a pivotal moment. Could her father open himself up to the help he so desperately needed? She watched him turn towards Linda, a storm of emotions swirling in his gaze. What would he decide? Would he open his heart to the possibility of change, or would he remain shackled by pride? As the rain continued to lash against the windows, a question hung in the air, one that could reshape their family forever. Would Joe take the first step into the uncertain but hopeful unknown that lay beyond the walls of pride? The answer waited, just like the storm. Outside, imminent and charged with possibility. Joe hesitated as he looked from Linda to Sarah, the weight of his decision pressing heavily on his shoulders. The walls of pride that had kept him fortified against the world seemed more like a cage in that moment, a barrier keeping out the very connections that could save them. I don't want to be a burden," he finally murmured, the words emerging like a whisper against the howling wind outside. The vulnerability in his voice tugged at Sarah's heartstrings. "Accepting help isn't being a burden, Dad," Sarah said softly, taking a cautious step closer. "It means you're allowing the people who care about you to support you. Isn't that what family is for?" Linda smiled gently, crossing her arms, her gaze steady and encouraging. "And what better time than now? The storms are fierce, but we can weather them together. It doesn't matter how strong you are, what matters is that you don't have to face this alone. For a moment, the three of them stood in silence. The sound of rain drumming against the roof echoed the hesitation in Joe's heart. Each drop seemed to beat with urgency, as if urging him to let go of the tumult of pride that had overshadowed his judgment. Then he sighed deeply, as if releasing a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Okay, it came out slowly, quaking with the uncertainty of fresh resolve. Okay. Maybe I could use some help. His admission was like a light piercing through the storm, illuminating the dark corners of his heart. That's all we needed to hear. Sarah exclaimed, relief flooding her features. The tension in the room began to ease, and for the first time in what felt like ages, she dared to hope. With a mix of joy and nervousness, Joe looked at Linda. Thank you for being here, he said, vulnerability mingling with gratitude. I don't know how to do this, but I want to try. Then we'll figure it out together, Linda promised, her smile becoming a beacon of warmth. You won't walk this path alone. You'll have a whole town ready to back you up. Joe nodded, a flicker of newfound energy igniting within him. As they gathered around the table, the oppressive atmosphere of the storm outside seemed to lessen just a little. Shadows that once lingered in the room began to retreat, highlighting the laughter that wove through their conversation, a laughter that hadn't graced their home in ages. Let us eat before it gets cold, Linda declared, ladling the steaming soup into bowls. Sarah filled the air with light chatter, and Joe even managed a hesitant chuckle. Outside, the storm raged on, but within those four walls, something shifted. With each spoonful, barriers around Joe melted further, replaced by a sense of kinship. The strong walls he had built were beginning to crumble, exposing the hope he hadn't realized he still held. Yet, uncertainty loomed still. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning, that the real storm, the one of transformation and challenges, was still to come. Was accepting help the first step to healing their family, or could it invite complications they were unprepared to face? As the soup warmed their bellies, the conversation turned to what they would need to do next. Joe shared his fears about the shop, and the more he opened up, the more the weight lifted from his shoulders. But amid the laughter and hope, an unspoken question lingered: would they truly be ready when the next storm hit, the one that could test their newfound unity? Courage bubbled within him, but he knew they would be facing trials ahead. In that simmering moment of connection, he understood change was a journey not just for him, but for all of them. The real transformation was about to begin. Little did they know, another storm was brewing, one that would not just test their resolve, but could change everything they thought they knew about their lives and each other. How deep did their community truly run? What sacrifices would come to light? The next morning broke with a hesitant light that filtered through the gray clouds still lingering in the sky. Joe stood at the kitchen sink, staring out the window at the somber landscape, which mirrored the chaos in his heart. The storm had taken a toll. Fallen branches littered the lawn, and debris clung to the edges of the garden. It felt like a fitting reflection of his own life, a landscape once familiar now filled with confusion. "Morning, Dad," Sarah chirped as she entered, brightening the dim room. She wore her usual bright smile, a beacon of hope in the aftermath of the chaos. "I made some coffee. Thought you might need it." He glanced over, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Thanks, kiddo." But deep down, a storm churned, mixing excitement with anxiety. Would they truly be able to navigate this road together? She poured a cup and set it in front of him. The warmth of the mug felt grounding, but as he wrapped his hands around it, Joe couldn't shake the fear that came with lifting the veil of pride he'd hidden behind for so long. "Are you ready for today?" Sarah asked, her tone shifting to one of concern. Joe nodded slowly, though uncertainty gripped him. "I guess so. I don't know what to say to the folks at the shop. What if they turn their backs on me?" Sarah took a seat across the table, her eyes steady. "They won't. You've built relationships with them. You've given a lot. Just be honest." That's what people respect. He leaned against the table, tracing the rim of his coffee cup. What if being honest doesn't change anything? What if I open up and they don't come through for us? The doorbell rang, breaking the heavy silence. Joe's heart raced as he glanced at Sarah, who headed toward the door. His stomach twisted into knots, anticipation hung in the air like a tangible thing. What if it was someone delivering bad news? But as Sarah opened the door, a wave of relief washed over them. Linda stood there, holding a basket filled with food and supplies. "Good morning, you two. Thought I'd bring a little something to start the day right." Her presence brought a warmth that shifted the energy in the room. "I could use the company before the meeting," Joe said, a level of gratitude swelling within him. Together, they made their way to the table, the basket set in the center like a symbol of unity. As they shared breakfast, stories began to flow. Linda shared her own trials, moments when she felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. Stories echoed around the table of community, of support, of healing. Yet, somewhere beneath the laughter, Joe felt a thread of unease. He knew what his shop meant to them all. Was he prepared to ask them for help? "You'll find a way, Joe," Linda said, as if catching a glimpse of the turmoil churning behind his eyes. "You're not alone, remember?" "I know," he replied, but the truth he felt was far more complex. Gathering courage, he wiped his hands on a towel and looked at Sarah, Linda, and then back into his coffee cup. "Maybe we should talk about the plan," he said, nervously fiddling with the napkin. "I want to be straightforward with everyone today." "We'll figure it out together," Sarah reassured him, though the flicker of worry in her eyes mirrored his own. As the morning stretched on, Joe felt the weight of the world sagging his shoulders. But he knew it was now or never. The circle of support around him was growing stronger, yet the setbacks were still looming over them like the very storm that had just raged outside. After breakfast, they made their way to the shop's community room. As he pulled open the door, the familiar scent of wood and fresh paint mingled with the nervous energy hanging in the air. Would this be the day everything changed for them, or would it simply lead to more questions? The townspeople were gathered, ready to listen. He stepped inside, ready to speak his truth. But just as he opened his mouth to better convey his fears, the doors swung open again. In walked a familiar figure, one that made his heart race and his mind spiral into uncertainty. It was Tom, the town's real estate mogul, whose sudden presence could tilt the scales in unexpected ways. What did he want? Was he there to help, or to widen the rift that threatened to swallow them all? In that moment, Joe realized they were perched on the brink of something big, and not just a meeting. The air crackled with potential, but the stakes were higher than he ever expected. Would Tom's arrival bring the support they desperately needed, or would it bring new complications that could tear them apart once more? Joe's pulse raced as Tom strolled in, exuding an air of confidence that both intimidated and intrigued him. The townspeople turned curious eyes toward the newcomer, a ripple of whispers zipping through the room. Everyone knew Tom was a player on a larger stage, a man whose power seemed to meander between respect and fear. "Glad to see everyone here," Tom said with a sharp grin, scanning the crowd as if to gauge their readiness. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." "No, not at all," Joe managed to say, though his voice wavered just slightly. Tom's gaze locked onto him, drawing out the uncertainty that lay buried deep. It felt as if the weight of the room shifted toward Joe, and suddenly he was standing alone in a spotlight. Tom casually leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Just came to check on the local businesses. I hear you've had a rough time, Joe." "Yeah, rough might be putting it lightly," Joe replied, the honesty spilling forward. "But we're gathering together to see what we can do as a community." "Community," Tom repeated, a hint of mockery dancing in his words. "A fine concept, but sometimes you need more than good intentions." The tension thickened. Joe felt Sarah stiffen beside him. The people around the room exchanged glances, some leaned in, eager for answers. Others just looked uncertain, caught between wanting to believe in Joe and the doubts creeping in with Tom's presence. Joe cleared his throat, feeling the need to reclaim the moment. We've always been about supporting each other. It's how we've survived. I'm not looking for handouts. I'm hoping to find ways to keep my shop open. People are counting on that. You know how important it is to this community. Tom raised an eyebrow, a smirk playing at the corner of his mouth. And what do you propose to do if they can't pay? Or if the shop doesn't generate enough income? You underestimate the loyalty of this town. Sarah piped up, her voice steady. People care about Joe and the shop. They believe in him. We all do. We can figure this out. Together. Turning his attention back to Joe, Tom paused for a moment, seemingly weighing his words before he spoke. You've got some fire, kid. I'll admit that. But fire needs resources to burn. If you had something, let's say a little investment, would you be willing to consider a partnership? The air froze around Joe. An investment? A partnership? It sounded tempting, but so easily could translate into something more controlling. What would be the price? He remembered the late-night conversations he had shared with Sarah and Linda about the importance of community spirit, of supporting each other without strings attached. Partnership? Joe echoed, trying to mask his turmoil. What are you implying, Tom? This town isn't for sale. The people here aren't pawns in your games. Easy there, Joe, Tom gestured, seemingly unruffled by the indignation. I'm offering a way to ensure your shop thrives. All I ask is a share of the profits in return. A smart move, but up to you. And just like that, a labyrinth of potential paths unfurled before Joe, each varying in danger and possibility. But the looming questions weighed like lead inside him. Could he sacrifice independence for survival? The community room buzzed around him, voices mixing with the thoughts spiraling in his mind. The faces of friends and family stared back, waiting, watching, hoping. Yet he also felt the creeping pressure of uncertainty. Think about it, Joe, Tom said, his calm demeanor refusing to shift even under scrutiny. I'll be around. As Tom turned to leave, Joe caught a glimpse of Sarah's worried expression. Linda's eyes flickered between hope and concern. Could he brave the unknown of accepting help from a man like Tom? The crowd resumed a quieter buzz, and Joe struggled to find the words that would acknowledge what hung heavy in the air. The meeting hadn't unfolded at all how he imagined. Let's take it one step at a time, he finally said, his voice resolute yet fragile. We can't make a decision based on fear. But fear tugged at him relentless. Moments dwindled, and he realized the defining question loomed ever larger. Would he reach out for a lifeline, or risk everything he held dear to keep it all intact? The weight of the room pressed down as they all waited. In that silence, a new level of pressure began to build, leaving Joe hanging on the precipice of choice. Would this be the day he made a stand, or the day he folded under the burden of decision? The clock ticked forward, the resolution nearly within reach, when the sound of breaking glass shattered the tension. What now? The sharp crack of glass echoed through the community room, silencing all conversation. Every head snapped toward the source of the sound, hearts racing in unison. Joe's skin prickled. He instinctively scanned the room, only to find that one of the old display cases behind the bar had been knocked over, shards of glass glittering like stars scattered across the floor. Who did that? Someone murmured, their voice barely above a whisper, while others backed away as if the glass fragments might spring to life. Joe quickly moved towards the scene, a jumble of anxious thoughts swirling in his head. He knew breaking something in this room meant more than just clutter. It could symbolize a break in their fragile unity. Everyone, stay calm, Joe called out, the authority in his tone surprising himself a bit. He crouched down, careful of the sharp edges that could cut deep. Breathing deeply, he focused on the task at hand as he began to gather the larger pieces. From the corner of his eye, he spotted Sarah rushing toward him. "Let me help," she said, kneeling beside him, her fingers deftly collecting shards. Their shoulders brushed against each other, the simple contact igniting something warm and steady between them. "Are you okay?" she asked, worry etched on her face. "I will be," Joe replied, glancing into her concerned eyes. But as he straightened up, an unsettling notion curled back into his mind: chaos seemed to be their constant companion these days. When the last piece was put away, Joe took a moment to look at the faces surrounding him. Everyone held their breath, uncertainty lingering like smoke in the air. The meeting was supposed to be about hope, yet it felt more like a storm was brewing around them. "Tom," Joe called out suddenly, spotting the man still leaning casually against the wall. "What's your angle here? You come in with your business offers when we're at our weakest, and then this," he gestured to the broken glass, "happens. Do you have any idea what this community means to us?" Tom's demeanor shifted slightly, the smirk shrinking to a serious expression. "I didn't intend for that to happen," he said, hands raised in mock surrender. "But sometimes, disasters yield opportunities." "Opportunities?" Joe shook his head in disbelief. "What opportunities do you think will arise from our ruin? This shop, our friendships, everything, don't you see?" Tom's gaze was steady, unwavering. "Just pointing out that sometimes you need to break things before you can build something better. That's business, Joe." Adaptation. Tension filled the room once more. Joe felt the heat of anger flush his cheeks. Would he constantly dance to Tom's twisted version of reality? Just then, Linda stepped forward, her voice cutting through the air. "We stand together. We won't let some investor dictate our fate." The crowd murmured in agreement, a wave of solidarity surging through them. Joe looked at their hopeful faces and felt a flicker of something bold ignite in his chest. "We've built this place with sweat and tears. It's not about profits, it's about people," he said firmly, meeting each of their gazes. "And we are stronger together than apart." There was a moment of silence, the heaviness lifting even just a little. "Let's get back to finding solutions that work for us, not for him," Sarah chimed in, her hand clasped firmly on Joe's shoulder as if to say, together they could face whatever storm twisted their way. As the group began to buzz once more, generating ideas and rallying around a community fundraiser, Tom lingered in the background, an inscrutable expression on his face. But as the crowd connected, Joe couldn't shake the feeling that Tom was not done with them yet. "Remember," Tom called from the door, "opportunities don't wait forever. The clock is ticking." As the door closed behind him, silence fell again as Joe stood wrestling with whether that weight of time was a threat or a challenge. But that uncertainty didn't last long. Suddenly, a commotion broke out at the back of the room. An unexpected arrival stormed through the doorway, a woman with striking blonde hair and an unmistakable air of authority. "I need to speak to Joe," she declared, scanning the room with fierce determination. What was her tie to all of this? How could one person shift the tide? Joe's heart raced again, wondering just who she was and how she would change everything for better or worse. The woman's presence commanded attention. Her bright blonde hair caught the dim light, reflecting a resolve that seemed almost palpable. Joe felt the energy in the room shift. Whispers erupted among the crowd, curiosity cutting through the tension like a knife. "Excuse me?" Joe finally managed to say, stepping forward. Her piercing blue eyes locked onto his, assessing him with a mixture of urgency and calm. "I'm Lisa," she said, voice steady and clear. "And I've been looking for you, Joe. We need to talk." "About what?" he replied, a mix of apprehension and intrigue knotting in his stomach. This was not a day for surprises. Yet something about her intensity made him want to listen. "About Tom. He's not the only one who sees this community as an opportunity," Lisa said, glancing at the group, their collective uncertainty hanging thick in the air. "I've got some ideas that could help you fight back." Joe's mind raced. help us? Or help yourself? He challenged, cautious of anyone promising salvation in their time of strife. Lisa took a step closer, her expression earnest. Listen, I know what kind of hold Tom has. My father invested in businesses like his before, big corporations that don't care about the people. But I want to change that narrative. The room continued to buzz, whispers dancing between skepticism and intrigue. Joe could feel the crowd's confusion shifting toward curiosity, but he had more pressing concerns. And why should we believe you? What's in this for you? I've been trying to find a way to break away from my father's legacy, she admitted, her voice dropping slightly. He believes that profit comes before people. I can connect you with resources that prioritize community over capital. Resources? Linda echoed from the side, her brow furrowed. And just how do we know this isn't just another scheme? Lisa's gaze softened. You can check my history. I've spent years working in nonprofits. I'm not like Tom. I'm trying to make a difference. Joe could feel the collective breath of the room, the doubt still present yet slowly wavering under Lisa's determined spirit. All around him, faces began to shift as hope tentatively crept in. What do you have in mind? He asked, feeling that flicker of possibility igniting again, this time, a bit stronger. I want to help you organize a fundraiser that highlights your community, showcasing the stories that define this place. Not everything needs to be about margins and profit. Sometimes, all it takes is reminding the world of what's at stake. Joe could feel a surge of strength in her words. Hope felt tangible. We can do that, he said, meeting her gaze. But it'll require real commitment from everyone involved. I'm in, Sarah spoke up, her voice unwavering. If we do this, we need everyone to rally together. This isn't just about saving a building, it's about keeping our community alive. The energy in the room shifted yet again, palpable excitement mingling with the ongoing uncertainty. Joe glanced around, seeing newfound determination in the faces around him. Maybe Lisa really could be a turning point, a change in the tide they desperately needed. But even as they plotted their next steps, Joe saw out of the corner of his eye Tom had re-entered the room, a knowing smile playing at the corners of his mouth. What's going on here? Tom said, his voice smooth, masking a distinct undercurrent. Joe felt the room tighten once again, the air thick with tension. Just a little get-together, Lisa shot back, standing her ground. But you wouldn't understand the importance of community, would you? The exchange hung heavy, and Joe could sense the stakes rising. They were being drawn into a deeper conflict, one that threatened everything they had fought for. As Joe looked from Tom's confident grin to Lisa's fierce resolve, a single thought crossed his mind: what was going to happen when they clashed? What choices lay ahead that could either save or destroy everything? Tom stepped into the spotlight, his presence cold, like a chill running through the crowd. Joe felt the weight of Tom's gaze, as if it were an uninvited guest, filling the air with unease. The tension was electric, ready to snap at any moment. Lisa didn't waver. This community is worth fighting for, Tom. We're not just pawns in your game anymore. Tom chuckled, the sound smooth but laced with disdain. You're being naive, Lisa. It's cute, really. But they don't stand a chance against the kind of power I wield. Joe could see the uncertainty creep back into the faces of the group. He had to act. You think power is all that matters? He called out, finding strength in his own voice. These people are far more than that. We might not have cash on our side, but we have each other. Tom raised an eyebrow, surprised by the challenge. Oh, really? What do you think community will magically accomplish? It's business, Joe. Profit rules everything. Remember that. Lisa stepped forward, her tone firm yet passionate. And what happens when profit comes at the expense of lives, Tom? Communities die. People lose their homes, their dreams. There was a power in her words that suddenly drew the group closer, absorbing the energy like a sponge. It was as if the faint embers of hope were being fanned into flames. Joe took a breath, trying to funnel the electric energy in the room. We stand for something more. We're not just going to sit back and let you take everything. This is our home. The murmurs from the crowd grew louder, a blend of support and skepticism lifting the atmosphere. He felt the stirrings of courage flow through him. If they were going to stand a chance against Tom's looming shadow, they needed unity. "Let us put on that fundraiser," Joe said, thinking aloud, his heart racing at the possibility. "We bring our stories to life. Show the world who we are. That we are more than a marketplace for your ambitions." Suddenly there was excitement, palpable and infectious. Sarah jumped back in, her enthusiasm contagious. "Let us light up the town. We can tell our stories through art, music, everything that makes us who we are." As the group began to murmur their support, ideas bursting forth like popcorn, Joe could feel Tom's irritation simmering. "You really think this silly little project of yours can stand against me?" he sneered. Lisa turned slowly, determination radiating from her. "This isn't just a project. It's a movement. A chance for us to reclaim what's ours. And I want back down from you, Tom. Not anymore." The room was alive with newfound hope and energy, the air crackling as plans began to form. But amidst the frenzy, a shadow hung. Joe could feel Tom's anger shift, a storm brewing behind that smooth facade. "What will you do if I fight back?" Tom challenged, crossing his arms. "I'll unleash everything I have to destroy you." The spark of fear flickered through Joe, but more importantly, it ignited a wave of resolve. "Let him come," he said, heart pounding. "We're ready now. And we'll stand together." The strength in the crowd was undeniable, but Joe couldn't shake the feeling that they were only at the beginning of a much larger battle. The stakes were rising, the air thick with tension, and Tom wasn't one to back down easily. As they discussed logistics and details for the fundraiser, Joe couldn't shake the image of Tom's confidence. What lengths would he go to? And what corners would he manipulate? Would their unity be enough to withstand the coming storm? As the meeting started to wind down with hopeful chatter, Joe glanced at Lisa. There was something about their connection, their shared purpose, that felt important. It was more than just a fight, it was beginning to feel like a chance at something greater. Then, just as things began to settle, Joe felt a chill run down his spine as Tom's voice cut through the buzzing crowd again. "I'll be watching. And trust me, you want to be prepared for what's coming next." Joe's heart raced. They had just taken the first step, but the real battle was still ahead. What would Tom do next? And could they stand against his looming threat? As the murmurs of excitement swirled around the community center, Joe felt a tight knot of anxiety tightening in his stomach. Tom's words lingered like a dark cloud overhead, a reminder that their hopes were not without peril. He glanced at Lisa, her fierce determination shining brightly, and he knew they had to act quickly. "Everyone," he called out, capturing their attention with urgency. "We need a plan. We can't just wish for change, we have to fight for it." Lisa nodded, her eyes radiating trust. "Yes. We'll organize the fundraiser to highlight our stories, the things that make us a community. We need to get the word out and draw in supporters. This isn't just about our past, it's about our future." The group buzzed with energy again, their spirits reigniting as ideas flew like sparks. Joe felt caught in the tidal wave of enthusiasm that washed over him, energizing him. "Let us split into teams," he suggested. "We need organizers, artists, musicians, you name it. Everyone has a role to play in this." Sarah piped up again, her face flushed with excitement. "I can reach out to local musicians. They'll want to support us, especially after everything Tom's been up to." A trickle of voices began echoing around the room, sharing ideas. The walls once filled with fear now reverberated with laughter and hope. But while they strategized, Joe couldn't shake the shadow of Tom looming over them. Hours passed and the meeting eventually wound to a close, but Joe's mind raced with worries. As people filed out, anxious laughter filled the air, but he could hear the whispered doubts. Would their unity hold? Would their passion be enough to withstand what Tom might unleash next? "Hey," Lisa said softly, stepping closer to him as they tidied up the scattered papers and empty coffee cups. "You were amazing tonight. You rallied everyone like I've never seen." Joe smiled, the warmth of her compliment filling him with reassurance. "Thanks, Lisa. I just hope it's enough. I know Tom won't take this lying down. He'll find ways to undercut us." She stepped forward, placing a firm hand on his shoulder. "Then we'll be ready. Together, we'll stand strong against him. He's good, Joe, but he doesn't know us like we know each other. That's our advantage." Joe swallowed hard, the weight of her words resonating deep within him. In this fight, they built a bond, a connection that went beyond just opposition against Tom. It was their community spirit compelling them to rise. With a heavy heart, he acknowledged the truth: they needed more than just courage. They needed a strategy that wasn't predictable. "Let us think outside the box. We'll find supporters, local businesses, even outside funding. It's not just a community fundraiser, it's a movement." "I like the way you think," Lisa said, a glint of mischief in her eye. "We'll outsmart him at his own game." Joe laughed lightly, but the laughter didn't erase the worry blooming inside him. As they exited the center, he couldn't help but glance over his shoulder, half expecting to see Tom's imposing figure lurking in the shadows. The streets around them were quiet, and the moon cast long shadows on the pavement. This wasn't just about the fundraiser, it was about facing something larger than either of them understood. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Joe asked, pausing. "Tom won't pull any punches." Lisa's expression hardened with a fierce resolve. "If we stand together, we can't lose. Besides, I'd rather fight and lose than not fight at all." Her words struck a chord within him, filling him with renewed determination. But a gnawing fear remained. Could they really take a man like Tom on in a fight that was about more than the surface issues? In the corner of his mind, a new thought emerged: what if they could find an ally within the enemy's walls? Someone who knew exactly how Tom operated, perhaps even someone who wanted to see him toppled as much as they did. Joe turned to Lisa, excitement weaving through his thoughts. "What if we reach out to someone close to Tom? There might be a chance we can get information, something to tip the scales in our favor." Lisa's eyes widened, and he could see the wheels turning, the spark of hope igniting. That could work. As they started to brainstorm who that ally might be, Joe's pulse quickened. But who could possibly be on our side? Outside the community center, the cool breeze kissed their cheeks, a reminder that change was in the air, but not without its challenges. He felt a sense of urgency bubble within him. Time was not on their side. But who would emerge to help them navigate this dangerous game? Would they find the ally they so desperately needed, or would their plans crumble under the weight of betrayal? The sun rose over Westwood, a glimmer of light pushing through the remnants of last night's storm. Joe stood at the window, watching the town slowly wake, feeling a mix of hope and anxiety fluttering in his chest. Today was the day of the fundraiser. A chance to rally the community and show Tom the strength of their bond. "Dad, are you ready?" Sarah's voice broke through his thoughts. She came into the kitchen with a nervous smile, her energy brightening the space. "I think so," he replied, squeezing the mug of coffee in his hands, a comforting reminder of the warmth in their hearts. "It's just a lot of pressure." Sarah placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "It's going to be amazing. Everyone's excited. This community believes in you." His eyes met hers, and he found the encouragement he needed. "You're right. It's about more than just us. It's about showing everyone what we can do together. As they arrived at the community center, the air buzzed with anticipation. Local vendors had begun setting up their stalls, filled with handmade crafts and treats. Colorful banners adorned the walls, proclaiming Westwood strong in bold letters. A stage was set in the corner for musicians, adding to the summer festival atmosphere. But Joe felt Tom's shadow lingering. Would he come? Would he try to sabotage their efforts? Just as those thoughts crossed his mind, he spotted Lisa approaching, a beaming smile on her face. "Are you ready to make history?" She looked vibrant and determined, a stark contrast to the uncertainty that had clouded his thoughts. "Together we can," Joe replied, and the two of them shared a moment of solidarity, their mission clear. Soon, the community filled with familiar faces, friends, neighbors, and supporters showing up to lend their voices and strength. As the event kicked off, Joe took a deep breath, stepping up to the microphone. "Thank you all for being here today," he called out, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "This isn't just a fundraiser, it's our chance to show what Westwood stands for, a community that supports one another through thick and thin." Applause erupted, a wave of warmth washing over him. Cheers and laughter intertwined, drawing him into the moment, and for the first time in a long while, he felt the weight of pride lift. As the music played, people shared their stories, laughter mixing with the rhythm of the day. But Joe still felt a knot of anxiety, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Then, just as they were starting to feel the warmth of their successes, he noticed Tom sauntering toward the center, hands tucked casually in his pockets. His confident demeanor felt like a cold gust of wind cutting through the joy. The crowd went quiet, tension thickening the air. "Looks like someone decided to crash the party," Lisa whispered, determination igniting in her eyes. Joe stiffened. "Let us show him we're not afraid." Tom stopped a few paces away, casting a sweeping glance over the festivities. "Looks charming. But let us not kid ourselves, this won't change anything." "Maybe not in the way you think," Joe stepped forward, his voice strong. "This isn't about one man's profits, it's about our people. This community is our strength, and we won't be intimidated. You underestimate us." A silence fell over the group, all eyes shifting between Joe and Tom, waiting to see what would happen next. Tom's expression hardened, clearly annoyed. "But community doesn't pay the bills. You're only delaying the inevitable." Joe felt fire ignite within him. "Maybe, but bills aren't just numbers, they're livelihoods. They're hopes and dreams. And this community would rather struggle together than succeed at the expense of one another." There was a ripple of agreement through the crowd, a subtle affirmation of solidarity. People lifted their heads a little higher, reclaiming their confidence. Tom shifted, caught off guard by the raw determination of the people around him. "I do love a good story," he smirked, turning to the crowd. "But stories don't write checks." Lisa stepped in. "But they motivate people to invest in each other. And that's what we're doing here. We're sharing our dreams, which will attract the support we need." With adrenaline pumping, Joe jumped in, "And if you don't see that, then you truly don't know these people. We're not going to let someone like you steal our light." The crowd began to murmur again, the tension now countered by their resolute energy. Tom squinted, trying to calculate his next move. "Fine," he said slowly, his tone cold, "but don't say I didn't warn you." As he turned to leave, the audience took a collective breath, the atmosphere finally shifting back to celebration. The remainder of the day unfolded beautifully, laughter and songs echoing through Westwood. Joe felt a connection to every single person around him. This was not just about him, but about the lives they were all weaving together. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow across the sky, Joe felt victorious. For the first time, he saw tangible hope. The fundraiser had raised more funds than anyone had anticipated. He turned to Sarah, who was beaming with joy. "Look at what we did," she exclaimed, practically bouncing with excitement. "We did it," he echoed, his heart full. But then he remembered Lisa's words about ensuring they stayed vigilant. "Let us keep our focus. Tom won't just disappear because we had one good day." Sarah nodded, her expression turning serious again. "You're right. We have to stay united." As the event wound down, Joe and Lisa began to strategize their next steps, rallying the newfound support around them. They needed to keep momentum alive. He could feel the whirlwind of change coursing through him, scale upward, building not just a business, but a way of life. Later, as they walked home under the stars, Joe reflected on just how far they had come. They were standing firm together and nothing, not even Tom, could erase the connection they had re-established. Suddenly, Joe's heart skipped a beat as he spotted a figure in the distance. It was Tom again, lurking just beyond the festival lights, his silhouette sharp against the chaotic world that had brought Joe new strength. "Joe, go take care of your family." "I'll handle this," Lisa said, gripping his arms like a lifeline before he could react. "No, I'm not leaving you," he replied, the collective fear from earlier tightening his chest again. But Lisa's fierce gaze stopped him. "This isn't just your fight. I've spent too long in a shadow. I'm not afraid to step into the light." And in that moment, Joe saw the heart of a true warrior. He felt a swell of pride for them all together. They'd all become something much more than victims of circumstance. "Then let us send him a message," Joe said, the warmth of urgency flowing through him. With determination surging in their hearts, they stepped towards Tom, ready to face whatever storm was brewing, knowing they would weather it together. They stood firm, a line drawn in the sand, unyielding against any challenges on the horizon. But would they hold the line? Or would Tom's influence turn their moment of glory into another storm?